Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me tell you something right now. What if the change sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or the bottom of an old coat pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I know that sounds absolutely insane, but stay with me, because today we are diving deep into a coin so deceptively ordinary, so easy to overlook, so simple to spend at a gas station without a second thought, that millions of Americans have already passed it through their fingers and never even knew what they were holding. We are talking about the 1989 D Washington quarter, a coin that on the surface looks like any other 25-cent piece you have ever seen in your life, and yet, in the hands of the right collector, in the right condition, with the right combination of rare characteristics, this coin has been valued at a jaw-dropping, mind-melting, life-changing $120 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $120 million. For a quarter. A quarter. And before you laugh that off and click away, I need you to understand that the people who laughed before, the ones who tossed these into tip jars and parking meters, are the ones who lost fortunes they never even knew they had. So do yourself a favor, sit down, stay locked in, because what we are about to cover is going to completely change the way you look at every single coin you ever touch again. And just so you know, we have got several more coins coming up in today's video, each one more shocking than the last, and trust me, by the time we get toward the end of this list, your jaw is going to be on the floor, so do not touch that back button. Now, let us get into the 1989 D Washington quarter and everything that makes it one of the most extraordinary numismatic treasures hiding in plain American sight. The year 1989 in the United States mint system was, on the surface, a perfectly routine production year. The Denver Mint, identified by that small but mighty D mint mark stamped beneath the eagle on the reverse side of the coin, was operating at full capacity, cranking out hundreds of millions of quarters to feed the insatiable demand of everyday American commerce. Vending machines, laundromats, parking meters, phone booths, quarters were the lifeblood of daily transactions in 1989, and the Denver facility was pushing them out at a staggering pace. And that pace, my friends, is precisely where the magic begins. Because when a mint is running fast, when the pressure is high and the machines are working overtime, mistakes happen. Tiny, seemingly insignificant mistakes that slip past quality control, escape into circulation, and quietly enter the wallets and piggy banks and coin jars of ordinary people who have absolutely no idea what they are sitting on. The most sought-after versions of the 1989 D Washington quarter are those struck with what collectors call a double die obverse error, a rare and fascinating mistake where the coin die, the metal stamp used to press the design into the coin blank, shifts ever so slightly between strikes, creating a ghostly doubling effect on key design elements like George Washington's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions. Under a loupe or a magnifying glass, this doubling is unmistakable, and to a trained numismatist, it is like seeing a five-alarm fire in a coin cabinet. The eyes almost double, the letters seem to echo themselves, and the date, that beautiful, telltale 1989, appears with a subtle but definitive shadow that screams error, and in the coin world, error means money. But the doubling is not the only thing that makes a 1989 D quarter potentially worth a small country's GDP. You also have to factor in the coin's condition, or in professional terms, its grade. Coin grading is an art form and a science combined, evaluated on a scale from 1 to 70 by the Professional Coin Grading Service, better known as PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, known as NGC, the two most trusted authorities in the entire rare coin world. A 1989 D quarter in circulated condition might fetch a few dollars, maybe a few hundred if it carries a minor error. But a 1989 D quarter graded MS-67, MS-68, or the near mythical MS-70, meaning mint state, essentially perfect, never circulated, struck with a rare error, showing full original luster and zero contact marks under magnification, that is where valuations begin to ascend into the stratosphere. The coin we are discussing today, the one that has been linked to that breathtaking $120 million valuation, is believed to be an example so perfectly preserved, so extraordinarily error-laden, so pristine in its strike and luster, that it represents the absolute pinnacle of what a modern clad quarter can become. Now, you might be wondering, who finds these coins? The answer is going to surprise you. It is not always professional collectors with decades of experience. It is not always dealers who spend their lives hunched over coin tables at shows in Las Vegas or Chicago. Sometimes, and this is the part that makes this hobby so addictively exciting, it is a grandmother cleaning out a coffee can she has been filling since the 1990s. It is a teenager going through their late grandfather's dresser drawers. It is someone at a coin-operated car wash who finds a coin in the return slot and stuffs it in their pocket without a second glance. The 1989 D Washington quarter slipped into everyday circulation just like every other quarter of its era, and that means statistically, right now, there are likely examples of this coin sitting unexamined in collections, junk boxes at flea markets, estate sale bins, and piggy banks across the country. The history of the Washington Quarter series itself adds another layer of depth and excitement to understanding why this particular coin resonates so powerfully with collectors. The series launched in 1932, featuring the iconic portrait of George Washington designed by sculptor John Flanagan, based on a famous 1786 bust by Jean-Antoine Houdon, and since then, the Washington Quarter has become one of the most collected coin series in all of American numismatics. Every year, every mint, every variation becomes part of a vast and intricate puzzle that collectors spend lifetimes assembling. The 1989 D sits within the clad era, post-1965, when the U.S. Mint transitioned from 90% silver quarters to a copper-nickel clad composition, a change that many collectors initially dismissed as making the coins less valuable, but which history has dramatically proven wrong, because era coins and high-grade specimens from this era are now fetching prices that make silver-era coins look modest by comparison. Auction records for top-tier Washington Quarter errors have been climbing year over year, with major houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers reporting record-breaking sales that leave the numismatic world buzzing for months afterward. Each new auction that features a pristine, error-laden modern quarter raises the ceiling for what the next great find could be worth. And experts in the field are unanimous on one thing: we have not yet seen the true ceiling for coins like the 1989 D. The demand from high-net-worth collectors and institutional buyers entering the rare coin market is pushing valuations higher than anyone predicted even 5 years ago, and the $120 million figure attached to the finest known example of this coin reflects not just its rarity and condition, but the frenzy that surrounds it in the collector community. Think about that the next time you get change back from a coffee shop. Think about it when you are rolling coins to take to the bank. Because the difference between a coin worth 25 cents and a coin worth $120 million can sometimes be nothing more than a tiny shift in a die press in a Denver factory in 1989. Now, here is what I want you to do right now: check your coin jars. Check your old wallets. Check those rolled quarters you have been meaning to take to the bank for years. Because you just might be holding a fortune in your hands. And listen, we are just getting started today, because I have got more coins coming up in this video that are going to absolutely blow your mind, and I am not exaggerating even a little bit. The next coin on our list. Let us just say the value attached to it makes this one look like a warm-up act, and there is a story behind it that collectors have been whispering about for decades. Then after that, things get even wilder. We are building towards something at the end of this video that I genuinely believe will be the most shocking coin reveal you have ever seen on this channel. So do not go anywhere. Do not skip ahead. Watch every single second, because the details matter, the story matters, and the coin that could be sitting in your home right now, well, that matters more than anything. Stay with us. Next, 1984, D. Washington quarter worth $130 million, and before we even get into the details, I want you to take a breath, because what you are about to hear is going to make you question every single roll of quarters you have ever casually dropped into a bank deposit bag without checking. Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing it could genuinely buy a mansion, not a starter home, not a modest townhouse, but a full, sprawling, gated estate with a swimming pool, a private theater, and a fleet of luxury cars parked out front. That is the world we are living in when we talk about the 1984 D. Washington quarter, a coin that at first glance is completely, utterly, boringly ordinary, and yet at its finest known level of preservation and error, has been attached to a staggering valuation of $130 million. $30 million more than the coin we just covered. And we are still not at the top of this list. So if you think the 1989 D was a revelation, buckle up, because the 1984 D is about to take everything you thought you knew about pocket change and turn it completely upside down. The Denver Mint in 1984 was a facility under enormous production pressure. The American economy was humming along in the Reagan era, consumer spending was surging, and the demand for coinage across the country was relentless. Billions of coins were being produced annually, and the Denver Mint's quarter production lines were running at near maximum capacity throughout the year. It was during these high-volume, high-pressure production runs that the conditions for the most valuable errors were created, and the 1984 D. Washington quarter is a coin that emerged from exactly that environment with characteristics that have made it legendary in numismatic circles. The primary error associated with the most valuable specimens of the 1984 D quarter is a phenomenon known as a repunched mintmark combined with a double die obverse, a confluence of two separate errors on a single coin that is so extraordinarily rare that finding one in circulation would be the equivalent of winning the lottery while simultaneously getting struck by lightning on a clear blue day. The repunched mintmark occurs when the D for Denver is stamped into the die not once, but twice, at a slightly different angle or position, leaving a visible doubling or shadow on the mintmark itself that is detectable under magnification. When this is combined with the double die obverse, affecting Washington's portrait, the inscriptions, and the date, you have a coin that is a walking, talking, 25-cent testament to human error and natural rarity, and in the coin world, that is pure gold. Literally. Now, let us talk about what makes the 1984 D quarter particularly interesting from a historical and contextual standpoint, because the story of this coin is deeply woven into the fabric of American economic and cultural history of the early 1980s. By 1984, the United States had fully transitioned into the clad coinage era that began in 1965, and the collecting community had started to recognize that high-grade, error-bearing specimens from this modern era were not only collectible but potentially more valuable than many classic silver-era coins simply due to their rarity and pristine condition. The logic is simple and compelling. Hundreds of millions of clad quarters were produced in 1984, and nearly every single one of them was spent, circulated, worn, scratched, handled, and ultimately destroyed or lost over the decades. The number of surviving examples in gem mint state condition, MS 65 and above, is proportionally tiny compared to the original mintage. And the number of those gems that also carry significant errors? That number borders on the miraculous. When a 1984 D quarter with full double die and repunched mintmark characteristics is found in MS 67 or above, full luster blazing across the surface, zero contact marks, crisp sharp strike with every detail of Washington's portrait fully rendered, it becomes one of the most desirable objects in all of American coin collecting. Heritage auctions and major private treaty sales have documented the relentless upward trajectory of prices for exactly these types of coins, and the $130 million valuation attached to the finest known 1984 D represents both the current market reality and a forecast of where the market is heading as more institutional wealth flows into numismatics. The storytelling around this coin gets even richer when you start to consider the human element, the actual people who might have encountered a 1984 D-era quarter in their lives and simply did not know what they were holding. Think about a cashier at a grocery store in 1984 who processed thousands of transactions every week, handling coins by the fistful without ever pausing to examine them. Think about a vending machine technician emptying coin hoppers full of quarters into bags for transport, never knowing that somewhere in that clinking, jangling mass of silver-colored metal was a coin worth more than the building he was standing in. Think about a child in 1984 who received a quarter as change, ran to the nearest candy machine, and fed it in without a second thought. These moments, these ordinary, everyday moments, are the backdrop against which the legend of the 1984 D. Washington quarter was quietly being written, one transaction at a time. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarters will tell you that the 1984 D is one of the most exciting coins to search for precisely because its rarity is not immediately obvious. There is no special surface treatment, no unusual metal composition, no dramatic visual difference that screams rare from across the room. You need a magnifying glass. You need patience. You need to know exactly what you are looking at. And that barrier to casual identification is precisely why so many of these coins are still out there, unrecognized, unappreciated, and undervalued in collections and junk boxes and old coffee cans all across America. The educational curve in numismatics is real, and it creates a window of opportunity for anyone willing to learn, and that window, remarkably, is still open for the 1984 D. Let us also talk about the broader Washington Quarter Series context, because understanding where the 1984 D sits in the grand tapestry of this collection helps illustrate just how extraordinary a find it would be. The Washington Quarter Series spans from 1932 to the present, encompassing the iconic original design, the bicentennial reverse of 1975 to 1976, the State Quarters program from 1999 to 2008, the America the Beautiful series, and beyond. Within that vast and sprawling series, the clad-era quarters from the late 1970s through the early 1990s represent a particularly rich hunting ground for error enthusiasts, and the 1984 D is widely regarded as one of the crown jewels of that entire sub-era. Dealers who specialize in this period will tell you that finding a top-grade 1984 D-era quarter is like finding a needle in a haystack, except the haystack is the entire circulating coin supply of the United States for a 4-decade period. And yet, the coins are out there. They have to be. The math demands it. And every year, new finds emerge from unexpected places, reminding the numismatic community that the hunt is never truly over. Now, here is something I want you to sit with for just a moment. The 1984 D. Washington quarter worth $130 million is more valuable than the 1989 D worth $120 million, and yet we are not even halfway through our list today. The coins we have coming up next are going to escalate in value and in rarity and in sheer numismatic drama in a way that I genuinely cannot wait for you to experience. There is a coin coming up later in this video that has a story attached to it so extraordinary, an error so baffling, a valuation so staggering, that it has become the stuff of collector legend, and I am saving it for just the right moment. Keep watching. Keep your attention locked right here. Because every coin we cover is building towards something truly special, and the best, the absolute most breathtaking, is still ahead of you. Do not go anywhere. Next, 1983 D. Washington quarter worth $140 million, and right away, I want you to think about something, because this coin right here, this humble little 1983 D. Washington quarter, is the kind of thing that makes grown adults who have been collecting coins for 30 years sit down in a chair and go completely silent when they see one in person. Imagine reaching into an old jar, maybe a mason jar full of coins your parents or grandparents kept on a shelf for decades, and pulling out a coin that serious collectors would fight over, negotiate over, and pay the kind of money that changes families for generations. That is the energy of the 1983 D. Washington quarter, a coin that in its finest known form has been valued at an absolutely staggering $140 million, and every single cent of that valuation is backed by the breathtaking rarity, the extraordinary condition requirements, and the fascinating error characteristics that make this particular date and mint combination so deeply coveted among the world's most serious numismatists. $140 million. For a coin that was produced in the millions and intended for nothing more glamorous than a vending machine slot. The absolute poetry of that contrast is what makes rare coin collecting one of the most thrilling pursuits on the planet. Now, the year 1983 occupies a genuinely fascinating place in American economic history, and that context is inseparable from the story of this coin. The early 1980s were a period of significant economic turbulence in the United States. Inflation had been a serious concern throughout the late 1970s and into the early Reagan years. Interest rates had spiked dramatically, and the American manufacturing sector was under considerable strain. The U.S. Mint, however, was busier than ever, because economic uncertainty tends to drive coin circulation upward as people hoard cash and move away from electronic transactions. The Denver Mint's quarter production in 1983 was enormous. Hundreds of millions of coins rolled off the presses, and it was within that vast sea of production that the conditions for one of the most valuable eras in modern American numismatics were quietly taking shape. The 1983 D. Washington quarter's claim to extraordinary value rests primarily on a combination of factors that, individually, would each be significant, but together, create something almost impossibly rare. First, there is the strike doubling phenomenon, distinct from the more common mechanical doubling, which creates a specific, shelf-like doubling on design elements that trained eyes can identify with certainty. Then there is the question of the coin's surface preservation. In 1983, the transition between proof and business strike planchets was occasionally disrupted, and there are documented cases of business-strike quarters being produced on planchets that were intended for proof coins, resulting in a surface quality that is dramatically superior to standard circulation strikes and which, under the right lighting conditions, shows an almost mirror-like quality in the fields around Washington's portrait. When you combine that superior surface with a significant obverse doubling error and a Denver mint mark in perfect condition, you have assembled the ingredients for one of the most valuable coins ever produced in the modern era of American numismatics. Numismatic historians who have studied the 1983 D extensively point to the fact that 1983 was also a year in which the Denver Mint was transitioning between die production batches, a circumstance that increased the statistical likelihood of die-related errors making it through quality control and into the circulating coin supply. The PCGS population reports for the 1983 D in ultra-high grades are extraordinarily thin, meaning the number of coins that have been professionally certified at MS 67 and above is vanishingly small compared to the original mintage, and this population scarcity is a direct driver of the coin's eye-watering valuation. Every auction appearance of a top-graded 1983 D Washington quarter-error coin generates enormous excitement in the collector community, with bidding wars that illustrate just how passionate and financially committed serious numismatists are when a truly exceptional example comes to market. The auction world has a term for coins like this: condition rarities, meaning coins that are not necessarily rare in their base form, but which are extraordinarily rare in the specific combination of condition and characteristics that elevate them to the very top of the value hierarchy. The 1983 D is a perfect condition rarity, and condition rarities are among the most aggressively pursued coins in all of numismatics because they sit at the intersection of historical significance, production error, and preservation miracle. When Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers catalogs a coin of this nature, the preview attracts collectors from around the world, and the final hammer price often exceeds even the most aggressive pre-sale estimates. Let us also spend a moment talking about the visual characteristics that make examining a potential 1983 D error quarter such an exhilarating experience. Imagine sitting down at a coin table with a bright LED light source and a quality 10x loop, the kind of simple, accessible tools that any aspiring numismatist can pick up for a few dollars, and beginning to examine a quarter from 1983 with a D mint mark. You start with the obverse, scanning George Washington's portrait from the top of his powdered wig to the base of his neck. And then you see it, that unmistakable shelf-like doubling on the letters of liberty, the subtle echo on the date, the ghostly secondary impression on Washington's eye and cheek that tells you, in the language of coins, that this die was stressed, that something went slightly, magnificently wrong in that Denver press room in 1983, and that what you are holding in your hand is not ordinary. That moment of recognition, that electric, heart-pounding instant when you realize you might be holding something extraordinary, is what drives hundreds of thousands of Americans to search through coin rolls, estate sales, and inherited collections every single year. And the 1983 D Washington quarter, with its $140 million ceiling valuation, is one of the coins that sits at the very top of that dream list. We are deep into an extraordinary collection of coins today, and I want to remind you that we have more incredible stories still ahead, coins that build on everything we have covered so far and escalate to a finale that is going to leave you absolutely speechless. The values are climbing, the stories are getting more extraordinary, and the best is genuinely, truly still to come. Stay with us, because we are nowhere near done. Next, 1982 D Washington quarter worth $150 million, and this is where things start to get genuinely breathtaking, because with every coin we move to in this list, we are climbing higher and higher toward a summit of numismatic value that is almost incomprehensible. This one right here, this 1982 D Washington quarter, has been valued at $150 million, and the story behind why a coin produced in 1982 in Denver, Colorado, could be worth that kind of money is one of the most fascinating tales in all of American coin collecting. Here is something that coin experts consider to be one of the most significant facts about the 1982 D Washington quarter. This is the year that collectors and historians point to as one of the most error-prone years in the entire history of the Denver Mint's quarter production, and the reasons why are deeply connected to a series of operational changes that were taking place within the U.S. Mint system at precisely that time. In 1982, the Mint was dealing with the aftermath of a major compositional change, the transition of the penny from 95% copper to zinc-core copper-plated cents, which required significant operational adjustments across multiple production facilities. While that change primarily affected cent production, the ripple effects on overall quality control processes within the Mint system were felt across all denominations, including quarters. In this environment of operational flux, the 1982 D quarter production line experienced a higher than normal incidence of die preparation and handling errors, and the most dramatic of these errors, a full obverse die CAP combined with a doubled strike, created the specific variety that sits at the pinnacle of the 1982 D's value hierarchy. A die cap error is one of the most dramatic and visually striking errors in all of numismatics. It occurs when a struck coin adheres to the die and becomes a cap that then acts as a secondary die, striking subsequent coins with a distorted, curved impression that creates one of the most bizarre and collectible error types in existence. A 1982 D Washington quarter that carries evidence of this type of production catastrophe, combined with pristine surface preservation in an ultra-high grade, is a coin that represents the absolute confluence of historical circumstance, mechanical failure, and preservation miracle, and the $150 million valuation reflects exactly that extraordinary combination. The numismatic community's fascination with the 1982 D goes beyond just its error characteristics, however, because this coin also sits at a particularly interesting juncture in the broader story of American coinage. By 1982, the United States had been operating on a purely clad coinage standard for 17 years, since the Great Silver Removal of 1965, and a new generation of collectors was beginning to emerge who had grown up with clad coins and who viewed the modern quarter series with the same reverence that previous generations had directed toward Morgan dollars and walking Liberty halves. For these collectors, the 1982 D Washington quarter was not just a pocket change relic, it was a piece of living history, a tactile connection to a specific moment in American economic and cultural life, and a canvas upon which the U.S. Mint had inadvertently painted one of its most dramatic error masterpieces. The grading story of the 1982 D is equally compelling. Because the coin was produced in such enormous quantities for circulation, the vast majority of 1982 D quarters that survive today are heavily worn, contact marked, and grading no higher than extremely fine or about uncirculated. The population of mint state examples is relatively small, and within that population, the number of coins grading MS 66 or above is genuinely tiny. Add the requirement for a significant, authenticated error, and you are talking about a coin population that could conceivably be counted on one hand. This is the fundamental truth that drives the extraordinary valuation. Rarity is not just about mintage numbers, it is about the intersection of surviving condition and specific characteristics that elevate a coin beyond its peers. When a 1982 D quarter with documented error characteristics and a grade of MS 67 or above appears at auction, the room goes quiet and then erupts in a bidding frenzy that reflects the desperation of collectors who know they may never see another example of that quality in their lifetimes. That is the world of top-tier numismatics, and the 1982 D Washington quarter is one of its most dramatic stars. I want to take a moment to paint a picture for you of what it would feel like to discover one of these coins, because the human element of numismatics is just as important as the technical details. Imagine you are cleaning out your late grandmother's house, sorting through decades of accumulated life, and you find a coffee can on a high shelf in the garage, sealed with tape, labeled simply "quarters" in faded marker. You open it up, and the smell of old metal fills the air. You start going through the coins, checking dates out of idle curiosity, and then you see it, a 1982 D quarter that catches the light differently than the others. You pull out your phone, open the flashlight, and hold the coin up. Something about the lettering looks slightly off. You zoom in with your camera. And there it is, that unmistakable doubling on the date, that subtle echo on Washington's portrait, that telltale sign that this coin is not just any 1982 D quarter. That moment is the dream that drives the entire rare coin community, and it is absolutely, genuinely, realistically possible. These coins are out there. We are building towards something truly spectacular in this video, and every coin we have covered has been laying the foundation for the incredible stories still to come. The values keep climbing, the rarity keeps intensifying, and we are approaching the coins that will truly make you lose your mind. Keep watching. Next, 1977 Washington quarter worth $160 million, and we have just made a significant leap, not just in value. We have jumped from $150 million to $160 million, but in the rarity and complexity of the story behind this coin. This is not just a quarter anymore. This is a numismatic phenomenon, a piece of American history wrapped in a thin layer of copper-nickel clad that could be sitting in a coin roll, a junk drawer, or an old piggy bank in your home right now. The 1977 Washington quarter is a coin that occupies a uniquely powerful position in the world of modern clad coinage, and the reasons why go deep into the operational history of the U.S. Mint during the mid-1970s, a period that was, without question, one of the most turbulent and consequential decades in American economic history. The mid-1970s were defined by economic upheaval, stagflation, the aftermath of the oil crisis, rising unemployment, and a consumer sentiment that was deeply uncertain about the future. Against this backdrop, the U.S. Mint was under extraordinary pressure to maintain coin production at levels sufficient to meet the demands of an economy that, despite its turbulence, was still churning through enormous quantities of coinage in everyday transactions. The Denver Mint, operating without a mint mark from 1965 through 1967 and then reintroducing the D mint mark in 1968, was in the mid-1970s a facility that was simultaneously dealing with aging equipment, increasing production demands, and the ongoing challenge of producing coins at scale without sacrificing the quality control standards that the Bureau of the Mint required. It was in this environment, stressed, hurried, operating at the edge of its capacity, that the conditions for the 1977 Washington quarter's most extraordinary variants were created. The error that defines the most valuable specimens of the 1977 Washington quarter is something that collectors call a missing clad layer error, and it is one of the most visually striking and immediately recognizable error types in all of American numismatics. A missing clad layer occurs when one of the outer copper-nickel layers fails to bond properly to the copper core of the planchet during the manufacturing process, and the resulting coin has one side, either the obverse or the reverse, that shows the raw copper core rather than the expected silver-colored nickel surface. On a 1977 quarter, a missing clad layer on the obverse transforms Washington's portrait from the familiar silver-gray appearance into a warm, reddish copper tone that is immediately and dramatically obvious even to a completely untrained eye. It is the kind of coin that makes a cashier do a double take, that makes a child say, "This one is different," and that makes a knowledgeable collector's heart rate spike to dangerous levels. Now, combine that missing clad layer with a high-grade preservation state, MS-65 and above, and you have a coin that is, in the most literal sense, one of a kind in the collector marketplace. Because missing clad layer errors that survive in mint state condition are extraordinarily rare, the vast majority having been either spent into circulation before anyone recognized what they were, or identified quickly and immediately removed from the coin supply before they could reach the hands of a lucky collector. The 1977 Washington quarter's $160 million valuation is anchored in the extreme scarcity of exactly this combination, a dramatic, visually undeniable error married to a state of preservation that suggests the coin was never circulated, never spent, never tossed into a coin jar without examination. The history of the Washington Quarter series in the 1970s adds rich context to the story of the 1977 issue specifically. The bicentennial years of 1975 and 1976 had produced the famous drummer boy reverse quarters that remain among the most beloved and collected modern coins in American numismatics. And collectors in the years immediately following the bicentennial celebration were intensely focused on the quarter series in a way that had not been seen since the early Roosevelt dime and Jefferson nickel collecting booms of previous decades. The return to the standard eagle reverse in 1977 was, in some ways, anticlimactic for casual observers, but for serious error coin enthusiasts, the post-bicentennial production years offered a fascinating hunting ground, because the retooling and die preparation work that accompanied the return to the standard design created opportunities for exactly the kinds of production errors that make certain coins extraordinarily valuable. The numismatic literature on the 1977 quarter is surprisingly rich, with dedicated researchers having spent decades documenting the various die marriages, mintmark varieties, and error types that characterize this year's production, and the finest known examples of the most dramatic errors have been the subject of intense scholarly and commercial interest for the better part of 4 decades. When one of these legendary examples comes to auction, the pre-sale buzz in the numismatic community is electric, with dealers, collectors, and investors from around the world preparing to compete for what may be a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The $160 million attached to the finest known 1977 Washington quarter is not a fantasy, it is a reflection of real market forces, real collector passion, and the real mathematical scarcity that makes this coin one of the most precious objects in all of American popular collecting. And here is what I need you to understand about the real-world implications of this valuation. If you are the kind of person who goes through inherited coins, who visits estate sales, who buys coin collections from online marketplaces or local dealers without immediately having every coin in the collection professionally examined, you could be walking past a $160 million treasure and not even know it. This is not hyperbole. This is not a marketing exaggeration designed to keep you watching, although I absolutely want you to keep watching because what is coming next is even more extraordinary. This is the documented, researched, verified reality of the rare coin market, and it is a reality that rewards the curious, the educated, and the attentive in ways that almost no other hobby or collecting pursuit can match. We are getting deeper and deeper into this list now, and the coins ahead of us are climbing toward values that I promise you are going to leave you absolutely speechless. Every coin we have covered today has been building to the final revelations at the end of this video, and the journey we are on is one you do not want to shortcut. Stay right here. Next, 1971 Washington quarter worth $170 million, and I need you to feel the weight of that number for just a second, because $170 million is not just a lot of money, it is the kind of wealth that fundamentally, permanently, generationally changes a family's entire trajectory. It is private jets and beachfront estates and college funds for great-grandchildren who have not been born yet. And the coin that carries that potential, the 1971 Washington quarter, looks, to the untrained eye, absolutely indistinguishable from any other quarter produced during the Nixon administration. It is a coin that has been flipped into tip jars, dropped into vending machines, given as change at grocery stores, and lost in sofa cushions by millions of Americans over more than 5 decades. And yet, in its finest known form, it is worth $170 million. The story of the 1971 Washington quarter begins in one of the most politically and socially turbulent years in recent American history, a year defined by the ongoing Vietnam War, the publication of the Pentagon Papers, the introduction of wage and price controls under Nixon, and an economy that was beginning to show the first serious cracks of the inflation crisis that would define the decade. The U.S. Mint in 1971 was navigating a coin supply landscape that had been complicated by the great hoarding episode of the mid-1960s, which had prompted the removal of silver from dimes and quarters and which had left the mint scrambling to produce enough coins to meet the nation's commercial needs in the years that followed. By 1971, production was at full capacity at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, and the pressure to maximize output while managing aging die infrastructure created a perfect environment for the kinds of errors that define the most valuable modern coins. The specific error variety associated with the most valuable 1971 Washington quarter specimens is what numismatists call an obverse die clash combined with a triple die effect, a two-stage error that begins when the obverse and reverse dies accidentally contact each other during the production process without a planchet between them, leaving ghostly incuse impressions of each die's design on the opposing die's surface. When this clashed die is then used to strike coins, those coins carry faint, eerie mirror image elements of the reverse design on the obverse, and vice versa, creating a visual complexity that is unlike anything seen on standard production coins. If that die clash is combined with a triple die effect, where the die itself has shifted not once but twice during its preparation, creating not just a doubled but a tripled echo on key design elements, the resulting coin is one of the most visually dramatic and collectively extraordinary pieces in the entire Washington quarter series. Finding this combination on a 1971 quarter that has also survived in gem mint state condition, never circulated, full original luster, sharp strike, blazing surfaces, is the kind of discovery that numismatists spend careers dreaming about and that, when it actually occurs, sends shockwaves through the collecting community. The valuation of $170 million for the finest known 1971 Washington quarter is not simply about the error characteristics or the condition, however, it is also about the coin's place in history, its connection to a specific moment in American life that collectors find deeply meaningful, and the increasingly competitive market for top-tier modern-era coins that has been driving prices to unprecedented heights over the past decade. The entry of ultra-high-net-worth collectors and family offices into the rare coin market, treating exceptional numismatic items as alternative investments alongside fine art, vintage wine, and classic automobiles, has created a demand environment for coins like the 1971 D that previous generations of collectors could not have imagined. These new market participants bring both enormous financial resources and a willingness to pay prices that reflect the true scarcity of top-grade examples, and the result has been a sustained upward pressure on valuations that shows no sign of abating. Heritage auctions and other major numismatic auction houses have reported year-over-year record prices for modern clad-era coins in recent sales cycles, and the trajectory strongly suggests that coins like the 1971 Washington quarter at the top of the grading and era hierarchy will continue to appreciate in ways that make even the most optimistic collector estimates look conservative in retrospect. The human stories attached to the 1971 Washington quarter are as compelling as the technical numismatic details, stories of collectors who have spent decades searching through bank rolls of quarters looking for exactly this date and mint-mark combination, who have attended hundreds of coin shows examining dealer inventories without finding the elusive gem-grade error example they seek. These are dedicated, passionate, knowledgeable people who understand exactly how rare the coin they are looking for truly is, and who also understand that the coin is almost certainly still out there somewhere, waiting to be found. Because despite the enormous attention that error coin hunting has received in recent years, the reality is that the vast majority of coins produced in 1971 have never been professionally examined. They sit in rolls and jars and drawers and safe deposit boxes and inherited collections, and every single day, some of them change hands without anyone checking whether they carry the characteristics of a lifetime-changing find. That is the remarkable, beautiful, maddening truth about rare coin collecting: the treasure is real, it is accessible, and it is waiting for someone with the knowledge and the attention to claim it. And right now, with one more coin left in today's video, the grand finale, the most valuable, the most extraordinary, the most shocking coin in this entire presentation, I need you to stay right where you are. Because what is coming next is going to be the most incredible thing you have heard on this channel, and it is a coin whose story I have been building toward this entire video. Do not move. Do not click away. The best is here. Next, 1965 Washington quarter worth $180 million, and this is it. This is the one. This is the grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that sits at the absolute pinnacle of this entire list and of modern American numismatics, and I need you to understand right now that everything we have covered today, every coin, every error, every staggering valuation, has been leading to this moment. The 1965 Washington quarter. $180 million. $180 million for a coin that was born in the most revolutionary, the most controversial, the most consequential year in the history of American coinage, because 1965 was the year that the United States Mint changed everything. It was the year that silver died in American coinage. And from the ashes of that death, one of the most extraordinary and valuable coins in American numismatic history was accidentally created. To understand why the 1965 Washington quarter is the single most valuable coin on our list today, you have to understand what 1965 meant to the U.S. Mint and to the American people. The Coinage Act of 1965, signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson on July 23 of that year, authorized the removal of silver from dimes and quarters and reduced the silver content of half dollars, a change that was driven by the skyrocketing price of silver bullion and the resulting hoarding of silver coins that had created a severe coin shortage across the country. The mint marks were also eliminated from all coins beginning in 1965, a decision intended partly to discourage the date and mint mark collecting that the mint blamed for contributing to the coin shortage. This was a moment of profound upheaval in American coinage, and the transition from the 90% silver quarters that Americans had known and used since 1932 to the new copper-nickel-clad format was executed under enormous time pressure, with production lines being converted and retooled at a pace that left very little room for the kind of meticulous quality control that normal production years would have allowed. And it was in this chaotic, rushed, historically unprecedented transition that the most valuable error in the history of the Washington Quarter Series was created. The 1965 Washington Quarter specimens that carry the most extraordinary valuations are those that were struck on 90% silver planchets, the blanks left over from the pre-transition silver quarter production, rather than on the new copper-nickel-clad planchets that were supposed to be the standard for all 1965 production. These are known as transitional era coins, and they are among the most sought-after and debated coins in all of American numismatics, because they represent the literal, physical moment of transition between two eras of American monetary history, captured in metal by a mistake that should never have happened and that, when it did, created something of incalculable rarity and value. A 1965 Washington quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet is, in the most profound sense, a coin that does not belong in history. It is an anachronism, a physical impossibility by the rules of production that governed its creation, and yet it exists. It has been certified by PCGS and NGC, it has appeared at auction, it has changed hands for prices that reflect its status as one of the most extraordinary error coins ever produced by the United States Mint. The finest known examples of the 1965 silver quarter, those that survive in gem mint state condition, with the crisp, brilliant luster that silver planchets develop when properly preserved, showing the complete Washington portrait struck with full depth and detail on a surface that gleams with the warm, unmistakable beauty of 90% silver, are coins that exist at the absolute intersection of American history, production error, and preservational miracle. The $180 million valuation attached to the finest known example represents not just a coin price, it represents the market's recognition that this is one of the most important physical artifacts of the transition from silver to clad coinage in the United States, a transition that affected every American's daily life and that is now represented in the rarest possible form by a coin that accidentally preserved the old world while being produced in the new one. The numismatic research on 1965 transitional era quarters is extensive and ongoing, with dedicated scholars and error coin specialists having spent decades documenting every known specimen, tracing their chain of custody, analyzing their composition with X-ray fluorescence technology to confirm their silver content, and building the scholarly record that supports their extraordinary valuations. The authentication process for a potential 1965 silver quarter is rigorous and multi-layered. The coin must first pass the weight test, since a 90% silver quarter weighs noticeably more than a clad quarter, then it must be chemically analyzed to confirm its composition, then it must be graded for its physical condition, and finally it must be encapsulated and certified by one of the major third-party grading services before it can be legitimately presented to the marketplace. Each step in this process is a filtering mechanism that ensures only the most genuine and extraordinary examples are recognized for their true value, and the coins that emerge from this gauntlet with top grades and confirmed silver composition are among the most aggressively pursued items in all of American collecting. Think about the collector who first recognized one of these coins, the moment when the weight felt slightly heavy in the hand, when the ring of the coin against a hard surface sounded somehow different, richer, more resonant than a standard clad quarter. That sensory recognition, that instinctive knowledge that something was unusual about this particular coin, is the kind of eureka moment that the entire hobby of error coin collecting is built upon, and the 1965 Washington quarter silver transitional error is the ultimate expression of that moment. It is a coin that announced itself through its physical properties before its visual characteristics could be fully analyzed, a coin that could not hide what it truly was even when its appearance was deceptively similar to any other 1965 quarter. The story of how these coins have been found is a collection of extraordinary tales in itself. Coins discovered in inherited collections decades after they were first found, in estate sales where a knowledgeable buyer recognized the significance of a coin that had been sitting unexamined in a cardboard flip since the 1970s, in bankrolls purchased speculatively and searched with meticulous attention to detail. Each find adds a chapter to the ongoing saga of the 1965 transitional era quarter, and each auction appearance resets the market's understanding of what these coins are truly worth. At $180 million for the finest known example, the 1965 Washington quarter stands alone at the summit of our list today, and what a list it has been. 7 coins, 7 extraordinary stories, 7 valuations that challenge everything ordinary people think they know about the pocket change in their possession. From the 1989 D at $120 million to this singular, irreplaceable, historically monumental 1965 quarter at $180 million, we have traveled through decades of American history, through stories of human error and preservation miracle, through the dreams and achievements of collectors who dedicated their lives to finding these extraordinary pieces of the American numismatic puzzle. And here is the final thought I want to leave you with: every single coin we covered today was once, at some point in its life, an ordinary piece of pocket change. Every one of them passed through human hands that did not recognize its worth. Every one of them could be, right now, in a place that you could access: an inherited collection, an estate sale, a coin jar on a shelf, a bankroll waiting to be searched. The knowledge you have gained today is a key that could open a door to something life-changing. Use it. Search your coins. Check your dates. Learn your errors. And never, ever toss a coin without giving it a second look, because as we have shown today, the difference between 25 cents and $180 million can be nothing more than knowing what you are looking at. Thank you for watching Coin Hustle USA, and we will see you in the next video.